Hello, good afternoon. Welcome. This is one of the last roundtables of this edition of the BEAM. This roundtable is called, has to do with one of the main issues of the BEAM from last year, the previous Biennale, which was called What to Do. It was a combination. What to do in spite of everything was the title last year. And we will contextualize this title to set it at this historic time that we are undergoing with this pandemic. And this roundtable is called What to Do, Festivals, Curatorial Projects, Audiovisual Encounters. And that's why in this particular roundtable, many friends of BEAM are participating. Some are newer and some have been around for a long time. I'm going to begin with the locals. Silvina Sperling is here. Silvina is an artist. She is one of the main artists about biodance in Argentina. She's one of the leading figures in biodance. And she's also the head of the World Festival of Biodance. Nicolas Testoni is here as well. He is an artist. He's participated in the BEAM and for many editions. In 2014, Nicolas, you got the first award of Norberto Grifa for Latin American audiovisual creation. And this award is something that unfortunately we are not able to give. It's the first time we haven't been able to do it. We had other alternatives. I can see that Maui is here from the Centro Cultural Recoleta. And with them, we reached an agreement to be able to have some kind of award. Nicolas is a producer as well, cultural creator, who is in charge of Ferro White, a very interesting space and other projects. It is a kind of museum, a social museum, you could call it. Pretty weird place. We also have Gabriel Sucher, who is the director of Video Forms, one of the festivals that for Gabriela Goldberg, who is in charge of this biennale, and for me, Video Forms was always a cultural activity that we took as an example. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for being here with us. Raudia Bagorri is also here. She's from Barcelona. He is a teacher, a researcher. She is a theoretical and historian of this type of art. We know her work. Generally, the video Primera Etapa is very well known by all students who begin in audiovisual arts. She's an author, and she was in the project of investigating video art. And finally, we have my friend, Mario Guterrectro. He is with us for the first time in the Biennale. He was one of the many artists who is receiving in Buenos Aires, and we were going to welcome him, but he couldn't come. And that, again, is one of the subjects that goes through this whole conversation. Besides from an artist, he is a curator, he is a cultural producer, and he's the director of the Projector Video Art Festival. Okay, so I've introduced everybody. I thank everybody deeply for having accepted our invite. I apologize because there were some problems in communication. I apologize. The BIM team is working in an unusual way, and there were some hiccups and irregularities and changes, last minute changes. Thank you once again, and I apologize. I'm going to begin with a very general question. Everybody who's here have in some way or another participated of this project that is the center, the core of the beam, which is to gaze into each other's eyes, to go back to. And in some cases, it is an example of the cases and what pushes us forward to converse, which is what strategies have we found when confronted with this unusual situation of the pandemic? Something that has not happened before in the story of humanity, especially because although there have been other diseases, this is a very specific time where connections between different parts of the world are completely articulated, very well oiled, and where we had the chance to keep communicating through the digital media. So my question is, how were you affected, your projects, the projects you had for this year? What strategies were you able to find? What alternatives you were able to find? What solutions? And in some sense, how did you restructure your model of production? I know that, for example, Proyector, the festival, had its physical part. Proyector has a very nice format, which is a sequence beyond the projections that you may have historically. Proyector has a very important part that is developed in a physical space, in galleries, etc. I know, Mario, that you carried on, you made the decision to maintain the space. And in spite of that, a lot of that was affected by the situation. So I would like to have you tell us a bit how you were able to carry on with Proyector and what decisions you made. Fantastic. So I'll start. I don't know. Should I put an image at the background? Whatever you like. It is spontaneous. If you want to chat, if you want to show us something, whatever you think is best. I'm going to share the screen so we can understand a bit for people who don't know what Proyector is, and they can find out a bit what we work, and then we could talk more in depth about the problems we have and how we were able to solve them. But because as Andres was saying, our festival itself, I'm going to put some raw material. It's not really edited. This is the edition that was finished about a month ago. There is a piece that is still not at the Prado Museum, but we're speaking about a festival. We've had it for 13 years. It is a big festival, and as Andres was saying, it is a festival that we have not wanted to get rid of the physical part because we think it is vital. And of course, for the first time, we've bet to go online. It's the first time we've put pieces that were been shown on the exhibition hall, but also on the website and different platforms. But our festival, we did it in September, and we were lucky that Madrid was still at a time when it was pretty open. You could have activities. So every day we tried to have a proposal. Every day we changed the rules, and every day we had to adapt to the new rules and regulations. Sometimes we could have 80 people, but some other days the space could only hold 10 people. So we could have thought of a festival that was just virtual, like you have, but we in Projector have always wanted to give importance to the pieces with regards to the dialogue that it has with the space itself. And we tried to get many of these pieces to not only be pieces that are. I have a critical problem as a director of festival and as an artist and audience. We're always programming mono-channel videos, HD, 4K. I'm tired of that normal cinema format, and I need to have these type of projects, to have a dialogue with the spectator and a dialogue between the pieces and a dialogue with the space. Maybe in a yard, in a house, in the street. So there's pieces that may be interactive and pieces which are small format for mobile devices, so that even if contact is not possible, there is a contact with the space itself. I did not want to have a festival that was just online, virtual, because we have clearly tried to work with artists where their pieces are not just a format that starts and finishes, but it is a piece that in somehow has a true relationship with other pieces or with the space itself. We work with small spaces in the city of Madrid. There could be galleries, independent places, museums, institutions, squares, places that are completely different for different types of audiences. It is free and with the intent that the art really reaches the normal people in a physical way, not just in a conceptual, virtual, screen mediated, tablet mediated way. We think the guided visits are important to have a look around where the pieces, to have to be in the middle of two pieces that are talking to each other, to have your body, to have the image, to have real time with what's happening. So I know we wanted to have a physical festival no matter what. And we will, if things close, we will see how to manage to adapt the programming with more things, with masks, with more regulations, but we didn't want to give up the peace or the space. We had even thought if they closed everything and we were in lockdown, we thought we have lots of projectors that we have accumulated, and some friends had projectors to give those projectors away so they could project from different houses into different walls so that video art would be on the street and it could reach other audiences. So to have the whole city involved. This, what you're seeing now, it was in a very commercial gallery. You could go and see it near Reina Sofia, lots of different places for very different audiences. And in that sense, we really tried to get the live experience. We were lucky that people came from 17 countries in the world to show this, but we did not want to abandon the physical idea of these pieces. We wanted these to be projected within a telescope onto a wall. For biodance, for example, this is just a lamp and a projection. It is a festival that needs to have a relationship to the physical space, pieces that are in different volumes with different materials. And for our festival and what we understand as art should continue. I don't know how you see it. I don't know how you have seen it this year, how you have focused on it, and what we have lost or what we have gained. But we want to continue with this idea of the performance, the installation. In this case, we had to build something with water, to build walls within an idea that is very, very, very professional, but simple with cheaper materials, because we had a very low budget this year. We really lost money this year, but we wanted to make a contrast this with you because everybody had to adapt. You had to bring everything online in the beam. You tell me, how did it work for you guys? Of all the other producers and artists who are part of the roundtable, how you were able to manage these ideas that many of us have. In 2019, this is a very physical part. There is a machine. The actual film itself gets burned. There is the sensation, and you go around the device. There are fragments of the piece which can how can you go for the physical and the virtual? These are raw images. They're not edited yet, but this is the initiative of what happened at our festival this year. And the problem we have as a festival when we decided to work with something that is live. Thank you. I get fantastic. It was very clear your position when it comes to this challenge. What were the problems that you had, the ideas, the decisions that you made in that sense? In a quick way, we may think that it is the opposing decision to what we did for BEAM, but I actually think that we are pretty much in tune. We can perhaps later on talk about it when we begin to have a dialogue with all the comments and all the ideas and all the positions that people have taken. Nicolas, I know that there is something that you wanted to do with Ferro White, something you dared to do, which was this idea that Ferro White is not an art museum and it's not a specific space for audiovisual arts, although you have your production, which is mainly on the audiovisual. But I found the news, I don't know, maybe it was just a project of what you did with the project of planting that you had for this year and how that in some way goes through this idea of Mario of having an alternative to put the festival onto the city. How did you manage this project that you had of the orchard? Maybe you can speak to us a bit about that experience. I don't know if you wanted to speak about something else, but I think that is an interesting thing to
En
begin with.
realidad respondiste a una gran intriga que tenía, que era ¿por qué me están invitando
Actually, I
exactamente a
was
esta
wondering
mesa?
why
¿no?
I was invited to this talk, and now I know.
Porque ustedes saben,
Because as
bueno,
you
sí,
know,
yo tengo como una actividad tal vez intermitente, nunca del
I
todo
have an
comprobable como
intermittent
realizador audiovisual,
activity.
podríamos decirlo así. pero en principio no soy curador,
I am not
no
a
soy un
curator.
organizador de festivales,
I do not
ni un
organize
gestor
festivals,
de actividades que tengan que ver con el campo
but
específico del
I
cine
try
experimental, del
to
videoarte,
do things
de la
to do
imagen en
with
movimiento.
experimental film
Lo
and
que
the
yo hago es
image in
trabajar en un
movement. What I
museo.
do is
Ese
I
museo,
work
como
in a
dijo Andrés, se
museum.
llama Ferroguay.
It is
Está
called
ubicado en un lugar
White.
de
It
Argentina,
is
un poco
in a
alejado
place of
de la
Argentina
capital.
which is
Está
a bit
ubicado
far
en la ciudad
away.
de Bahía Blanca,
It is in
una ciudad
Bahía
que está a
Blanca, a
800
city
kilómetros de la capital
800
de nuestro país,
kilometers away
y
from
más
Buenos Aires,
específicamente está ubicado en el
and
puerto de
it is
Ingeniero
in
Guay,
the dock,
que es un puerto
Ingeniero White.
tradicionalmente
It is
agroexportador, dedicado a la exportación de
where
granos. Es
agriculture
el granero del
is.
mundo, esa
It is
metáfora tan
where all the
problemática
grain goes out into the
que, bueno,
world.
atraviesa toda la historia de Argentina y es a
It
la vez
goes
el
through
polo
the whole
petroquímico
history
más
of
importante de la
Argentina,
Argentina desde los años 90 del siglo pasado.
and it is a
En ese
very
contexto,
important
lo que
town
hacemos
in
en Ferroguay
Argentina.
no
So
puede
what we
ser
do in
definido
Ferro
exactamente como
White
un museo
cannot
de
be
historia,
defined
tampoco como un
as
museo de arte,
a
tampoco como un
museum of
museo de
history,
ciencias. En
of
realidad el museo
art, or
elige
of
inventarse una
science. The
categoría y
museum
se
has
piensa como un
invented
museo
its own
taller.
category, and it
Un
is
museo
like a
taller es un
museum
lugar en el que las
workshop,
cosas, además de ser
a place where
exhibidas de
things
manera
are
virtual o
shown,
real, son hechas, las
are
producimos. Y las
made. We
producimos en
also produce
colaboración
them
con
in
las vecinas, los
collaboration
vecinos
with
del lugar en el que
the
habitamos.
people who live there.
Eh, la pandemia atacó el
The
corazón vital
pandemic
del museo, ¿no? Que es la posibilidad
went
del
for the
encuentro, de
heart of the
mirarnos a los
museum,
ojos,
which is the
lo que nos
opportunity
puso
to
en
gaze into
serios
each other's
problemas.
eyes.
Y
And
ahí
that
sí, a pesar de
meant
que
a
yo
big
lo que les voy a
problem.
contar
And
no tiene
although
nada que ver con la
what I'm going to
especificidad
talk
del
about
campo del
doesn't have to
audiovisual,
do with
hay una
the
intención común,
audiovisual,
como señala
there
Andrés,
is
con
a
lo que estaba
common
marcando Mario,
sense
¿no?
in what
Yo
Mario
tomé
was
algunas
saying.
notas
I took some
en
notes
relación con esto y
with
tengo
regards
algunas
to
imágenes
this,
para
and I have
mostrarles,
a
así que
few images
si
to
quieren
show,
hago eso, ¿sí? Les
and
voy
that's what I'm going to
contando
do.
a
I'm
partir
going
de
to
algunas
tell
notas que
you
tomé durante momentos diferentes de
from
la
the notes
cuarentena.
that I took during different times
Cuando arrancó
of
la
the
cuarentena
lockdown.
anotábamos
When
en el
we
museo, ¿no? Miro la calle
began,
quieta
I was
como el
saying I
fósil
look
flamante de la vida
at
que perdimos.
the street
Bueno, un poco
as a
exagero, ¿no?
fossil of what
Exagerábamos en
I
ese momento.
lost.
Pero es
We were
cierto que había
exaggerating
horas
then,
en que la
but there
cuarentena
were
convertía a
times
nuestro
where the
barrio
quarantine
en el
and the
diorama de una
lockdown,
suerte de museo a cielo abierto.
it was like a
Un
diorama,
museo en el que
our
no
town
son los
became like a
objetos, sino las
diorama of
personas
life.
las que
Not only
permanecíamos
objects,
en
but
guarda.
people
La
were
pandemia impone
confined.
esta
The
inversión
pandemic
drástica del
gives
punto de
this
vista. De repente
inversion
son
of
las
your
máquinas,
perspective.
los
The
pájaros, las
machines, the
plantas,
birds, the
todos esos
plants,
seres que los museos
all
nos
of those
enseñaron a considerar distintos
beings
y
that
por eso
museums have taught us to
subordinados a
consider
nuestra humana
subordinate
condición.
to our
Aquellos que
human
parecen estar
condition,
en
the ones
posición de
that seem to be
examinarnos,
in a
de
position to
catalogarnos y de
examine us, to
coleccionarnos como
catalog us, and
hámsters
to collect
histéricos
us
atrapados
as
en
if
sus
we were
jaulas.
hamsters
Detrás del dilema entre
hidden away
privilegiar a
in
los
our
públicos o
cages.
a las colecciones,
And
o
when you
entre
think about
privilegiar lo
either
virtual y lo real,
audience or the
la
collection, the
institución
virtual and the
museo
real, the
organiza la
institution
silenciosa
museum
separación
organizes the
entre
silent
las personas
separation
y las
between
cosas.
people and
Voy a
things.
compartir pantalla, a ver si
I'm
está.
going to share my screen.
¿Ven lo que les estoy reproduciendo?
Can you see what I am showing?
Les decía que detrás de estos dilemas habituales entre públicos,
Behind
colecciones,
these
real,
usual
virtual, lo que los
dilemmas,
museos hacemos todo el
what
tiempo
we do
es
as
consolidar una
museums is
separación
to
entre la noción de
consolidate a
persona y de
separation
cosa.
between the notion of
¿Sí?
people
Es
and
como si los
things.
museos colaboraran en
It's as if
establecer la
the museums
distancia
collaborate
y a la vez
to
el tráfico
establish the
clandestino
distance
entre
and the
estas dos nociones,
clandestine
en
traffic
apariencia
between these two
triviales,
notions,
pero
which
cuya
seem to be
contraposición
trivial,
resulta, sin embargo,
which
constitutiva de
are
nuestra comprensión ordinaria
constitutional
del
to
lugar
our
que ocupamos en el mundo.
ordinary
Se
comprehension of our
supone que
place in
somos
the world.
personas porque no
We
somos
are
cosas. Pero
persons
esa
because we're not
distinción
things,
no es
but
para
that
nada
distinction
obvia en
is
una
not
sociedad
obvious
en
in a
la que tanto los
society
humanos
where
como las demás
humans
criaturas
and
somos
other
susceptibles
creatures
de ser
are
tratados como
susceptible of
objetos
being
en el
treated as
proceso de producir
objects
bienes
in the
que a
process
través
of
de su
producing
intercambio
goods,
parecen adquirir
which
vida
by their
propia.
exchange have
La gran
like a
fractura
life.
ontológica que separa a las personas
The
de las cosas
fracture that separates
es
people from
ecuménica.
things
Adentro
is
de ella parecen
ecumenical,
caber
and
casi todos
within
los
it,
conflictos, ¿no?
all
Se diría
conflicts
incluso que
can
en eso consiste nuestro oficio como
flow.
instituciones
And
museales,
that
¿no?
is our
Cada
job
museo
as
es un puesto de
museum. Each
frontera
museum is
montado sobre
like
alguna de las líneas
a
divisorias
frontier
que
which
configuraron el contorno de la
sits on
vida
the
moderna.
borders of
Una
the
institución a
modern
menudo
life,
edificada
an
para prestigiar o
institution
eufemizar
which
las
is
jerarquías
a
enredadas
euphemism
entre
of
humanidad y
the
naturaleza,
hierarchies
entre
between
masculino y femenino, entre
masculine and
metrópolis y
feminine,
colonias,
metropolis
entre
and
patrones y
colony,
trabajadores, entre blancos y
bosses
negros,
and
entre criollos e
employees,
indios, entre heteronorma y
whites and
sexualidades
black,
anómalas, entre
between
alta cultura y culturas
gender and
populares, entre mente
sex,
y
between
cuerpo, cuerpo y
different
máquina, En fin,
mind and
entre
body,
todo aquel que alguna
body and
vez se arrogó el
machine,
lugar de
between
sujeto
everyone
y
who
aquellas y
wanted to
aquellos que
feel
fueron
like a
ubicados
subject
uno
and
tras
those
otro en el lugar
who
de objetos de un
were put
conocimiento que
in
por
the
mucho
object
tiempo
as an
asumimos como
object and a
neutral
knowledge
y
that for many
civilizado.
time we thought was
En Ferro
civilized and
White
neutral.
no
At
somos
Ferro White,
filósofos,
we are not
pero alcanza con
philosophers,
prestar un poco de
but
atención al virus
if
que
you
nos
pay enough
mata y a los
attention to the
algoritmos que
virus
nos
that kills us and
gobiernan,
the
para
algorithms who
advertir que la
govern us,
pedagogía
to
de
find
dominio
out that the
implícita en nuestros criterios
pedagogy
para
of
coleccionar,
dominion,
conservar y
which
exhibir no
is
sirve
to
más.
conserve and show,
Como
is no
tampoco estamos
longer
seguros
useful.
de que
We're not
sirva la propia
used.
distinción, como les
We
decía,
don't
entre
think
museos de
the
arte, de
distinction
historia, de
between art
psique,
museums,
de
history
ciencia.
museums, and film
Ferro White es
museums.
un museo que en sus
Ferro
salas
White is
atesora
a museum
herramientas
which
salvadas por un
has
grupo de
tools
ferroviarios
that have
luego de
been
la privatización de los trenes
protected
hace ya
by
3 décadas.
train
Ferro White podría funcionar
employees
como el
three
memorial de un
decades
mundo que se
ago, and
acabó,
it is a
cuyas
memorial of a
ruinas
world
no
that
nos
no
quedaría
longer
más remedio que
exists,
lamentar,
and the
pero no es
ruins are just
exactamente
there
eso.
to lament over.
Como
But
les
it's not
decía, Ferro
only
White
that.
prefiere pensarse como un
Ferro
museo
White
taller,
thinks of itself
como un
as a
lugar en el que las
museum
cosas,
workshop, a
además de ser
place where
exhibidas, se
things are
fabrican y
shown,
en el que
are
todo es
manufactured, and where
susceptible de ser
everything
revisado,
can be
desmontado
reviewed,
pieza por pieza. Incluso esos
moved,
conceptos de los que alguna vez
touched,
estuvimos tan
and those
orgullosos,
concepts that we
palabras como
used to make us
desarrollo o
so
progreso,
proud,
que
like
mucho tienen que ver
development,
con la historia de este
progress,
puerto
which
desde
have a
el que
lot
les
to
estoy
do with
hablando,
this
con
dock
todos
that
esos
I am
silos y
referring
esas
to, with all of
chimeneas
those
que se han
silos
transformado
and
en
the
nuestro
chimneys that
único
have
horizonte.
become our
A lo largo de los últimos
horizon.
15 años, Ferro White
In the
funcionó
last 15
alternativamente
years,
como
Ferro
salón de
White has
baile,
functioned
taller de
as
serigrafía,
a
corsódromo,
serigraphy
carpintería, sala
uh,
de conciertos,
workshop, as a
panadería,
concert hall,
peluquería,
as
balneario con
a
tangueado, fábrica de
hairdresser,
baldosas,
as a
herrería, gabinete de corte y confección, tanguería, escenario
uh,
teatral,
place
café
to
bacán e
do
incluso
theater, to do
como un museo.
tango, to even
Acá en
sleep.
este lugar
In this
fabricamos máquinas
place,
para
we
contar la historia y
manufacture
conserva de tomates.
um,
Acá nos inventamos un
machines to
santo y un
conserve
arca hecha
tomatoes.
con
We have
bidones
a
para escapar
saint.
por el mar
We
en caso
have
de que todo explote en nuestro polo
a
petroquímico.
ship.
Este museo inquieto
This
entonces se define
museum,
menos por lo que
therefore,
es
is less defined
que
by
por lo
what
que
it
hace,
is than by
o
what it
mejor,
does,
por lo que es capaz de aprender
of
a
what it is
hacer junto a
capable of
propios y
learning to
extraños
make
a la
with
hora de seguir
our own
haciendo de
people
este un
and with
lugar
strangers
habitable,
to keep
cosa para
this a
nada segura,
habitable place, which is
aclaro.
something that is not
Ferro
very
White produce lo que
certain.
muchas
Ferro
veces no es
White
rentable, pero a
produces
menudo sí
what
imprescindible,
is
implicando en esa producción a
needed
un
but
realizador de
not
video con un
profitable.
arquitecto,
We
a ese
organize
arquitecto con un
videos,
estibador, a una licenciada en
we
historia
talk
con un
to
mecánico de locomotoras,
historians,
a
to
una banda punk
architects, to
con una
people
colonia de cangrejos.
and
Seres que
punk
establecemos en este
band,
sitio relaciones
beings that
no
we
del todo
establish
previstas por las rutinas que el
relationships that are
trabajo y el
not
consumo
expected between
pautan para nuestras
consumption
vidas.
and joy.
Hará falta aclarar que casi nada nos sale redondo, que
Nothing
casi nunca
comes
estamos
out
de acuerdo.
perfect, and we are
En semejante
hardly ever
circunstancia,
in agreement.
no estoy muy seguro de que
I
estemos en
am not very
condiciones
sure
de
that we are
enunciar
in a
de un modo
condition to
leninista, ¿no?
enunciate
Esta pregunta tiene esa tradición,
the
¿qué hacer?
question about what to
Pero
do.
sí tal
But
vez de ejercer
perhaps
el
I
modesto
could
oficio de cerrajeros del porvenir para
be
intentar abrir
like
en
a
nuestro destino marcado de zona de
locksmith for the
sacrificio
future
un
to
pasadizo
see
hacia una existencia
a
menos
passage
ingrata.
to a less
Como decía
ungrateful
Andrés, la
existence. As
pandemia
I was
cerró
saying,
las puertas
Andres,
del
the
museo,
pandemic closed
pero el
the
museo
doors of the
aprendió a
museum, but the
meterse por
museum
debajo
learned
de la
to
puerta de sus vecinos.
filter underneath the
Mutó
door.
como mutan los
It
virus.
mutated like
Nuestro
viruses
edificio se
mutate. Our
convirtió en un
building
sobre con
became
semillas.
a
Este año
place for
teníamos pensado
seeds.
plantar una
This year we
huerta en nuestro
wanted
predio.
to do an
La
orchard
cuarentena
in our
impidió
museum.
la iniciativa,
The
pero nos
quarantine
alentó a multiplicar
impeded
esa
that, but
huerta
it
en 40
encouraged
patios de
us
todo el
to
puerto.
do that in
Jimena y Adriana nos
40
contactaron
different
con el
gardens.
INTA, el
Jimena and
Instituto
Adrián
Nacional de Tecnología
called
Agraria.
us from the
Emily y Teo
INTA
nos enseñaron a hacer
Institute. They
compostaje.
helped us and
Graciela y Jessy dieron una
taught
mano
us
con el
to make
reparto de semillas.
compost.
Y Caro con
We
NASA, Juli y
seeded
Melody grabaron
things.
un video para enseñarnos a
We
sembrar.
recorded a
Ahora el museo
video
crece
to
en
teach
tarros,
people
macetas
to
y
sow.
canteros,
So
intentando
now we
entender
have
a través de
this
su
orchard
tráfico
all over the
hormiga
city trying
cómo
to
cambian el
understand
trabajo, la vida en
how
casa y
the
las formas de
change
colaborar en
has
este
come
tiempo lleno de
with the
desafíos.
ways of collaborating and
Este
working
tren
from
es uno de
home.
los primeros que llegó a este puerto.
This train was one of
Interesarse
the
por la
first
historia
ones
del
that arrived
ferrocarril
in this
implica
city.
desarmar la idea de que
And to
existe
understand
un
the
tren de la
idea of
historia,
the
un
trains
proceso de
is to
fuerza
think about
irreversible que bajo
history,
la promesa de un
an
mañana
irreversible
próspero
force
nos conduce
that
de manera
under
inevitable a un
the
futuro de
promise of
escasez y
prosperity lead
desigualdad.
us to
¿Cómo salir de la
inequality.
cuarentena sin quedar presos de la
How
lógica
can we go out
securitista?
of this
¿Cómo
lockdown?
hacer para que
How
reabrir
can we
signifique la apertura hacia una noción de lo
reopen
público
and
distinta a
open
la que
to a different
imponen las
way of
plataformas
life
virtuales
than
que
the one that is
monopolizan y
imposed by
monetizan
the
nuestras
virtual
conversaciones? ¿Cómo
platforms which
convertir a la
monopolize
distancia
our
interpersonal
attention?
en el recaudo
How
necesario,
can we
pero no
make a
exclusivo, de un
refuge
sentido del ser junto a
and a
otros y otras
sense
y
of
otros
being with
que también
others
necesita ser
and living with
reinventado?
others?
Y sobre todo, ¿cómo no
And
acostumbrarse a
how
una nueva
can
normalidad
we
en
get
la que
used
algunas
to a
cosas
new
cambian
normality where
para
some
que en el
things
fondo
change
nada cambie?
so that in
La
the end
verdad
nothing
es
really
que no tenemos
changes?
ni
The
idea.
truth is we have no
De
idea.
momento, en este pequeño
For the
museo
time being,
municipal,
in this small
sospechamos que el
municipal
futuro no
museum,
se
we
entra por la
suspect that
puerta
we
principal,
don't go through
sino por la
to the
puerta que
future
da
for the
al
main
patio.
door, but
Allí, a metros
from
de
a
silos
special
repletos de
secret
soja
door.
transgénica,
Here,
sobre ese suelo
quite close to
salitroso sobre el que nos
transgenic
dijeron que no iba a crecer
soy,
nada, brotaron
we
desfachatadas
saw
las lechugas. Y para que eso
lettuce,
suceda,
and for that to
Lorena, Melissa y
happen,
Mateo prepararon
Lorena,
plantines en
Melissa,
mates de
Mateo
huevo,
prepared
Susana,
small
Bianca y Katy
plants,
armaron almácigos con cajones
Susana
de pescado,
made
Miguel, Nayara y el Negrón
the
abrieron
orchard,
surcos en la tierra,
lots
y
of
todos
people helped
nos
to
pusimos
sow,
a probar
and
con un asunto
we
que
all
nadie,
tried
pero nadie conocía
to
de
try
antes.
this new
Lo
thing
dije el
of
otro día
planting.
en otro lado y
I
hoy
said
lo
it
quiero
the other
repetir
day,
acá.
and I want to
Las
repeat
semillas
this.
del siempre
The
improbable
seeds
porvenir
of the
prenden ahí
future
donde somos capaces de
go
compartir
to where we're
esta potencia.
capable of
Bueno,
sharing
hasta
our
acá.
power. Thank you.
El Ferro White es un lugar.
Thank you, Nico. Ferro White is an incredible place to visit. It is not part of the tourist path in Argentina, but it really is a fantastic place of love. Whenever we have the chance to do it, we should actually visit this place, whoever feels like going to this fantastic place. It is a special place because you don't really know what you're going to find. And it is marvelous. Thank you for sharing these words and for having prepared that speech. Gabriel, is the
Yes,
translation working okay?
yes. I'm sorry, I just missed the whole thing with the ferro white. It looked quite interesting, unusual, but I will check on the internet to know more.
Bien. Entiendo que a lo mejor el problema fue justo con.
I understand that the problem was with the microphone or the audio
No,
that came out.
I had both audios, the Spanish and the English, so it was very difficult to understand. I grasped a few words, but not enough to be able to follow the whole speech.
Okay.
Too bad.
Y en este momento está funcionando bien, entonces.
Is everything working now?
Yes, I don't hear you, Andres, and I hear my translator, so it's kind of perfect.
Buenísimo.
Fantastic. I'm thinking that for many of my students, it'd be perfect not to hear me too. Gabriel,
Yes.
in order to go through this awkward time that you couldn't hear Nicolas, would you like to tell us how what variations or changes your projects had this year? I don't know whether you did video form this year. Did you transform it in some way?
Yes. So first of all, I would like to say that my festival is not so far away from the concerns that Mario expressed about Projector. So we start the week like with working with the juries, professional juries and other juries. So this happened in our festival. My festival is in March. On the 12th of March, we started working on the juries. On the 15th of March, this was the opening, which means all the installations, venues were open, and there was a big party as usual on these days. We had one full day of professional meetings, which happened. In these meetings, we invite artists who are most of the time in the exhibition to introduce themselves. We ask curators, guest curators, to introduce themselves, their structure, their organization, and show a short program of video art that they want to curate for us. This all happened. In the evening, we usually have performances. And well, how does it affect? In the beginning of the week, everybody was kissing, shaking hands, saying hello. This virus will not kill us, and things like that. But by the end of the week, everybody was avoiding kisses and handshaking. And after 2 days, which were open to the public, everything was shut down all at once. We only had the exceptional authorities let us do the last performance, which was made by a Spanish artist from Barcelona, Rocio Berenguer. You may have heard of her. And the thing is that the only public that was there was all my colleagues, my team, the team of the theater where the performance was taking place, and a very little number of audience. But this was very dense and very emotional. The next day, it was like, a bomb had fallen on the city. No sound, nothing. No one was allowed to go out. We had an exceptional permit to go and get our stuff. I mean, that means our computers. And we all brought everything back home. And so we started thinking about what shall we do now? We have, for example, a video competition, which means that artists send nearly 1,000 videos every year. We select a very small amount, something like 40 or 50 videos. So we asked the artists if they were prepared to go online. Most of them said yes. So we scheduled projection for 24 hours. Every time we gave a link, 24 hours, people could watch the videos. And then we had recorded also the performances. We edited them and we showed them also online. And during this time, we thought about what can we do now? Everything is canceled. All the exhibitions with the young people, all the visits, all the guided tours, even all the events we do in our city in Clermont-Ferrand until the summer were cancelled or postponed. So we thought about looking back at something we have, which is a kind of treasure, our archives. And we went down into our archives and selected a few things and made some events on Facebook mainly, and Twitter and Instagram. And those were very successful. We were very happy with that. Of course, it doesn't replace what is the most important for the festival. This is the physical meetings. When you see people, when you see the works, when you talk about the works, this is what we all miss the most, I think, from what I heard from Mario. I couldn't hear from Ferro White, sorry. But I guess you share the same feelings. And then we still had some orders from other countries because we are often asked to curate programs, sometimes exhibitions. We were very, very sad because we had an exceptional panel of production we made for this festival, and people could see them only for 2 days, which is very, very frustrating. And what happened next? Next, we were freed again. So last September, early September, we started our local events. And the first time with, of course, strict regulations, masks, distance, number of people allowed in the room. in a chapel. It's a chapel where we experiment residencies and events. And the people were really, really emotionally high. It was really incredible. So we planned a few things until 2 days ago. We finished last Wednesday. And then yesterday, same story again. We have to stop everything. We took our computers. I'm talking to you from my lounge. My colleagues are at home and we keep working. We use Skype because we are used to Skype, and we are 7 of us working like this. And the problem is we are, of course, thinking about our next festival in March. We have productions to make, and now that everything has stopped since midnight, we don't know. We still want to have this physical thing. So what did we do? We thought that we might maybe try and find projects which would be outdoors in public space. So we have 2 productions going on at the moment, but we don't know if we can produce them. For example, I was expecting the artist for the one of the productions next Sunday, and he called me to tell me I am in my bed. I got the COVID. I cannot come. Then the other people, since we are international, we're working with. We have guests from Hong Kong, from San Francisco, from Argentina, from Rosario. What shall we do with them if I cannot travel? Of course, the part that I described as the professional days could be done like we do now with Zoom, but it is, you will admit, very frustrating at the same time. So we're trying to think about things, and we are looking at what the others like you do. We were very interested in what the BIM did for the videos, which was very interesting for us. And I am also the National Secretary of Federation of People, Artists, Curators, Events, Festival, Biennials in France, dealing mainly with digital works, events. And I talked about them about your project and the platform that you made to show the videos. So they were very interested. And the main thing that we decided together is that instead of looking each other for his own solution, would be to mutualize, to look what's done in the world and what we can share. And then of course, this would be, in my mind at least, it hasn't been decided yet, something like open source, so that we can really share and at least attenuate the effect of the thing that at the moment, we don't know if we're going to be able to make a physical festival next year, for example. Did I answer your question, Andres?
Sí, perfecto.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
It is a very different case to the one that Mario and we went through, Mario with Projector and us in the BIM, because we had that time frame to be able to make a decision. Gabriel, you had no way of knowing what was coming. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gabriel, for saying that, for your comment about the situation. Laura? I know that Laura is a specialist in video, but she's a specialist in general. She goes out from that video museum format. It's interesting to see her research because she goes through video clip, videos that were thought about for the social media. There is a very digital social media universe that she knows about, and you're always in the midst of producing some new research project or some exhibition. So perhaps you could share with us how the digital universe, when we spoke at the beginning of all this, when we invited you to be a part of the beam, we talked about this idea that suddenly net art had been resuscitated and that once again we could see pieces and the internet was once again a support for work that artists or culture professionals began to take account of. I don't know how, in that sense, your investigation was affected or your projects for this year. I am not in charge of any festival or institution or museum, but I do curate for them. So now, for example, real experience. I am curating two things. One, for a center called Etopia, which is an art and technology center in Zaragoza. It is a big center. We'll see. We are preparing it for the March 3rd. Like everything, big uncertainty. We're going to prepare it and see what happens. Nobody knows what's going to happen on March 3rd. The other thing, which will happen soon, is Loop. It is the big fair of video, which is organized by gallerists and by buyers, collectors. It is the big international fair that is celebrated in Barcelona. And I am preparing a commissariat of two Cuban artists, Javier Melis and Ariel Castro. And we will go and met physically, but today we have lockdown in Spain, at least. I was going to say in Barcelona, but Mario is probably confined. The perimeter is closed first. And in Barcelona, they've been very original in Catalonia because all of the provinces are in lockdown. The perimeter they're trying to avoid is to get the Madrid people to stop getting the Madrid people to come out and contaminating people on the coast. And all of us, that is the problem. And in Barcelona, what they've said is that we are in lockdown completely at the weekend from 6 a.m. on Friday until 6 a.m. on Monday. So we can go to work Monday to Friday, but on weekends we are confined. You can imagine the anger. So this panorama on the 21st of November is the Loop Festival. So they're asking me what technical needs I have, and I'm like, we have a plan B, which is that they're going to upload the videos to a platform. But how are they going to do it? In this fair is based on buyers. It is based on videos. I had seen also series. So how are they going to do it? Open source, close. And this conversation, if had happened a few days from now, I would have told you what the real experience is. But this is directed by gallery owners and by collectors of video. It is completely different to the video expansion in the internet platform, and where everything is going, I don't know how they're going to solve it. That on the one hand. On the other hand, where we think we're going? What's going to happen? I think people are using internet. Internet is the most needed platform. Whoever is a teacher spend our lives, conferences, meetings, anything goes through the internet. Everything is here on the computer. And artists are beginning to work here as well. The next project that we have, that we're preparing, will depend. We haven't had approval yet, but to work, how artists and how the commissaries work, and we will work in these next few months, maybe years, through the no presence mode. Our project was based on artistic projects that went from self-representation, the body, and identity. How are we going to work from now on self-representation, body, and identity without physical contact from a screen? And how are people going to look at it? So we need to have a platform where people upload projects and also to have a series of interviews. The experience that you had of gazing into each other's eyes is a paradigm right now. You've done it very quickly and very well. I presented your project to my students 2 days ago in a class. They loved it. It's young people. It's people who are doing a postgraduate degree, and they loved the way you resolved it. They said aesthetically it was very well done and also conceptually. And for me, it is something to analyze that case. And I also think that now, during this time, I suspect these are just projections, in two different speeds that will be very simultaneous. I honestly think that the social media have a lot of strength, a lot of force on the one hand, but also, and Mario spoke about that as well, and Nicolas also mentioned it, it's very important to establish real social contact and to remain in the physical sphere. And I have recently been thinking about something that seems an experiment, but in the world now, I don't know how much it is implanted, but in spaces that are almost rural, I don't know if you know this, Mario, but there is a place called Fundación Cerezales in León. You don't know this. It is a space, Cerezales is a small town in León, and it has a big art center. Why does it have it? And I'm going to explain the origin because it is important to see why it's there. It is called Fundación Cerezales Antonino y Cini. Antonino is somebody from that very small town who emigrated to Mexico and lived there. And when he's there, he began working in a beer factory. He married the daughter of the owner of the beer factory, and he moves there and he helps. He begins to be a company man. He actually invented the coronita. He's the person who invented Corona, a guy from Leon, from Spain. And he inherits the factory or part of it. And at some point, his wife dies and he decides to go back to his town. And with the money that he has made in Mexico, he sets up in a lost town in the middle of Leon as an art center, which is that foundation that I'm speaking about. They had no children, so he does this. Isn't it beautiful? And that center, I went there when we had an artist there from Working Art, but they do artworks of any kind, video, but they are combining it with other initiatives for culture and leisure. I was interested in what Nicolas was saying. They do orchards, they go mushroom hunting, they do jazz nights in summer, but they also do a lot of things where they involve people. They teach how to look after lamb. They go with artists for visits to the forest. And those kinds of centers that generate a real community, it For me, I also believe it has to do with the disactivation of the myth of artists. Artists are cooperating with leisure and with culture right now in a way that everything becomes real interest, contact, like a substrate of trust with people. People are interested in art because the same person who is interested in art is interested in things that are interesting to them. So I believe these two speeds are happening at the same time, and that art is no longer centered in elitism and it goes to other fields, some places that are deeply social and others that are technological, where everybody is also involved. I don't know. I think these two things will live side by side for a while with a lot of strength, and I don't think it will one will exclude the other. For the time being, I think that the technological is going through a path, and this rural version, which could also be in a town, it could be in a small town, it could work. And to finish off, another connection. There is a center in France, La Maison Laurentine, in the center of France, in the middle of nowhere. I can see that Gabriel is smiling. So we know that Pierre Bonjoal from back when in the CTV.
Yes.
So now they're still there and they have their ideas. He has mounted Le Voluptés. Every year he sets, it is a very small center in a context of rurality. There's only the people who are there. It is not, and they're working with the interest of people who are there. And he works on the big idea, which is the big march. He always wanted that. And I also connect with another thing that Nicolas was saying, to connect people who work in a place with other people. His idea throughout his life has been to generate a big march of artists that walk from one place to another in France, from France to Spain, from Spain to Italy, from one place to the other, and they stay in people's houses along the way. Not only artists' houses, chemists, mathematicians, people who walk. He thinks to think you must march and you must walk. People who walk and contaminate, people who live in the houses, stay in the houses along the way, generating conversations, etc. And they move thus to the end place. I think among all of these things is the future, the way forward. That's what I think. Fantastic. I have seen in all of these encounters, not just these, but normally these encounters that we've had, I saw this presentation of our catalog, and somehow we always speak about what has been lost, how much we've lost due to the pandemic, how much we've lost of our contact. And I think we're looking for alternatives. And perhaps what is happening is, I related this attention to what alternatives may come up, even through this cold way of communicating. I think of it as a viable alternative. Before it was something on the back of my mind, but now it is much more viable and of an everyday nature, to relate to people and professionals and colleagues and friends and family members, where normally I saw them once every 2 years, every 3 years, whenever we met at a festival or whenever we met at an exhibition or a fair. And now the relationship is much more, it's closer in a way. So that's feeling that there is no physical contact, which of course is lost and we miss. Nonetheless, there is a different type of contact that has been activated. And we found that kind of compensation. That feeling is something that I've had, that I've been sharing with quite a few colleagues. But now, with what you're saying, especially with regards to the new function, even with the proposal of Nicolas, the new function of art and how you can approach culture in a much broader way, then I had this idea of the historical vanguards, the function of art in social practice. The social function of art, I think art has lost elitism. When I say it, the activation of the myth of the artist, I think that's what's happened from the artist's point of view, from the artistic production, also institutionally. The only ones who want to maintain that is the person who sell art. But even people have broken with this myth of the artist, and therefore the elitism has been lost. It is being lost, I believe. I hope so. I hope that happens. If you want it, the market is very powerful and will keep that elitism because we can think that the bourgeoisie, as it goes up to power, are the ones who invent this idea of art that we still keep. So you were thinking also about about a fair or a festival. I think it is a festival, isn't it? Or is it just they're both things. It's a fair and a festival, both things. But I was thinking the crisis in Arteba here, which is the big fair in Argentina, the art fair, and it was a disaster. They did this association with Arsi, which is this big supermarket, online supermarket of artworks, and it was a complete failure. So there is something there that it also crumbles. The possibility of materiality, the fetish object of having something that is so expensive and I own it. How to do that if I cannot put pour my desire over that object in a straight way? It dissolves. So that is interesting. You made me connect those two neurons that were not associated yet. Silvina, time really, really flies. And we get older. What alternatives did you find within your projects, your productions, your festival of video dance? Did you do it? Did you not do it this year? Other projects that were affected? Okay, don't ask me more things, please. I would like first to thank this conversation, to be able to be part of the beam, to see you, gaze into your eyes. And this reflects the platform and all of these ideas and these encounters reflects one of the things about the pandemic or what the lockdown has brought, this isolation, which is these reconnections and these non-adaptation in terms of I can bear what is coming and I try to suffer the least possible, but this creative way of searching within and without and in other people the chance to be reborn. So there is you find old friends and colleagues. You see the video letters, this ocean of images that are floating in gazing into each other's eyes. And on the other hand, this talk to me seems very emotional and touching, and with a script that is so emotional. In fact, when Nicolas was speaking, I was almost crying because the way in which he told us, and I'm still surprised about how much emotion and connection you can achieve even through these devices, which are called distance and flattening of the planet, with people that you may have met before, but you don't know so deeply, and how that can touch human nature. To demystify what you were saying about the renaissance of net art, I think it has to do with a way to go to technological media that at some point you stopped researching and it became something just latent, which was just commercial. Of course, some people still were investigating it deeply, but in some case, in some way, the alternative now is to say, if I go to the most creative place, the most elevated place to have an Occidental metaphor, Western metaphor of what can be achieved, and make the most of this type of virtual communication when it comes to teaching, when it comes to collaborations, even in a place this year, many of the groups of professionals that I speak about, we have not been able to get a union yet. So we are not real cultural workers yet. We don't have the status for that yet. In dance, we've been fighting for that to get the national law of dance. And in film, yes, we have achieved it a bit more. In audiovisual arts, when they are more experimental, well, let us say that we are more in the academic niche and not in the cultural one. But the collective idea, the Ibero-American network of biodance, the different shows, the federal, the video art family, these what I'm finding at the beam and all other encounters are really going through something of a change. We don't know if we're going to win some battle. We will probably lose most of these battles. But in that sense, I think we want to fight on. In that sense, I feel the revival of all of these connections, which are professional, which are creative, which are transnational, with the idea that in the one hand, we have the paradox of the isolation and not being able to travel and not being able to be in Madrid, for example, for me, or in Paraguay, or in Resistencia, but at the same time, I think all of my colleagues are in a global arena that is not necessarily a commercial, monetized way to see the social media. But I think this is being revived, and that gives me a lot of energy. On the one hand, I think what Laura said is so interesting about rural experiences. There is quite a lot of these experiences in Argentina, and some of them, even in the dance performance and the residencies, that were already being seen. But I think the pandemic really, as we were saying at the beginning, with Gabriel, it has really made a crisis out of the big city. It is an unviable situation. It is unlivable. There are people who go out saying this country is unviable for Argentina. Uh, there, we always have to hear these messages. But what is unviable, non-viable, is the big metropolis, the big city, the inhumane concentration, and the fact that it's only possible to get air and oxygen if you're consuming in a bar outdoors, or consuming, because I cannot have in my habitat, in my natural habitat, my portion of oxygen, my portion of land, of water, drinkable water, etc. So I believe this phenomena has to do with the new ruralities, something that happens in something I've seen in very close cases, people who stopped going to the university to move out to a rural community, which is self-sustainable, etc. They're really interesting. I hope that is multiplied. What is our concept? I think, as Laura says, demystifying the idea of the artist as an elite, a romantic elite. I don't know if it's like that, but I think things are happening. Parallel lives or communities. There are communities that are building different types of economies, different types of works, jobs, consumption, other ways to go from the self-exploitation as something to do with the only way to work under capitalism to self-sustainability, which is completely different, which is asking why is it necessary, what is superfluous, and where am I undergoing directives and needs that I don't really have. These are just bourgeois questions, of course. And we are not starving, of course, but to finish and not give, I hope this happens, and I think that all of those elements are living side by side. A market, which in the case of Argentina or Latin America and performance arts in Argentina, it is pretty inexistent. So we are very used to live outside the market rules, but it's there with other types of production. And what people who are responsible for public policies don't pay any attention. I remember my conversation with Andres, which was how will we continue producing culture when public policy is more and more disrespectful. And the pandemic has still not made an effect in the comprehension of the importance of culture, which is not only measured in how much work has been sold for, but what is the symbolic value that it shares, that it recycles, that it means. Thank you so much for letting me participate in this conversation. Thank you, Silvina. You know that I was always thinking, as you were speaking, about the BEAM slogan this year was going to be where to live. Mario must remember that because we were talking about that and his participation last year in the Biennale. When we thought about this with Gabriela, we understood that it had to be biennial, every 2 years, because of the conditions of production that we have in Argentina and in South America, but especially in Argentina. No budget, the bureaucracy is really, really tough. As we know, our economy is crazy. So with Gabriela, we made the decision that what we were going to do would have enough space to be able to do it in a responsible manner. So we dedicated a year to investigating and to begin to see the perspective of production of what the Biennale would entail. And the next year, we actually produce it. And last year, we actually had been, not the whole year, but we, for a couple of months after the beam finishes, we rest for a bit, but we work on the idea of where to live. And when this concept began, there were many things, many alternatives that showed up. Of course, we have the migration and immigration issue in Argentina, of the migrant situation, but I'm also thinking of a different issue that you mentioned, which I think is central, which is to maintain that conscience. In Latin America, whenever we have a space to talk from the cultural arena, we are always in a privileged situation, because in some sense, we are in the field that we chose. We managed to study that, and that we had two situations in these past few days, which were very, very sad at social level, to do with squatting on land from different perspectives. One finished with repression by the police, and the cause for this repression is diverse. But if we add on to that, yesterday I was lucky to coordinate a roundtable where we explained, there was a Canadian artist who explained the strategy of the subsidies of the Canadian government for their citizens when the lockdown happened. And I explained that in 2015, the minimum salary in Argentina was close to 600 American dollars, about 500 euros, I believe. That, for a European, they would think, I can't really live for a week. You cannot really live with $600 for a week, but that was a monthly salary. But that, for us, that was an achievement, actually. And 4 years from that, 5 years from that, our minimum salary now is $100. It is crazy. So that is a reality that when you set it on the table as a problem that is necessary to show, reality has a different dimension, because how can you live, those people who were squatting in that land with some small huts made of plastic and things like that, with children, etc. Those are people who effectively have nowhere to live. In this situation, which now has this health crisis involved, which really cuts everybody. And then that begins to be a problem that is too great to be able to gaze at. Plus, thank you, Silvina, for talking to us and to tell us about the perception that I have that is materialized in Nicolas's project, that has this idea through thought and what Laura was proposing, this idea that there is a need of the physical, which is substantial, but this means that we need to look for alternatives, and that's where we got these different needs met. Can we open the dialogue a bit? I know that Gabriel commented things on the chat as we talked. I don't know if you want to say something and share some of these thoughts through the microphone. Gabriela is also here, Gabriela Goldberg,
Yes, I saw. She
who
said
is in
hello.
charge of the beam.
Yes. No, I was.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Gabriela.
I timidly went in so as not to interrupt, but thank you, Laura, Mario, Gabriel, Nico. I am so happy to have this great team here and to see you all together. Thank you, thank you. Every time we meet with Silvina, Andres with Silvina, or with me, we always say we are family. And Laura, Nico, it is a very interesting and loved roundtable.
Entonces, Gabriel, si querías acercar alguno de los comentarios.
Gabriel, would you like to speak?
I just could repeat what I wrote. I was very interested in what you said, and the situation is, of course, different in every country. But in most countries, I think artists suffer. I'm not talking about the market because, as I said somewhere, I have a partnership with a gallery in my city, which is not a big city, but this gallery is dealing with contemporary artists, visual artists, video artists. And she told me after the first lockdown that she really made big business, and she was not expecting that because she went on the internet, and the artsy thing seems to be working for some people. But I think it's a very small amount. Most, as I said, most artists stopped not working, but having their works promoted or shown in festivals or exhibitions, and therefore they lose opportunities to get funding. I myself, I'm a member of a commission that is supposed to give financial support to artists, and we had to postpone the first date because it was someone had the COVID, and the second time, and so this time we have to do it with Zoom, which is not the same, because even if we discuss very friendly here, and in the commission it is almost all the time friendly, you need to use, the look at your partners, show your hands, how you are involved in supporting a project and not supporting another project. And then that's, well, I think you're all experiencing the same thing in your work, from what I hear. And I guess you will come to the same conclusion that we had with the group I mentioned before, this federation of people involved in the hybrid arts and digital culture all over France. And we decided to really work on mutualizing the good things that we could share, like producing, showing together, sharing expenses to show some artists who come from abroad, because in France it's almost quite easy to do it with our French artists. I was wondering about something, a question I would ask the group. Some partners in Europe and in France as well are talking about monetizing works of arts like they do on Artsy, but on special platforms with video art. And the thing I said also in this conversation is that when you buy a video as a collector, for example, you buy a digital file, which I can copy and have the same. The only difference, I think, is when the artist signs a contract, which is that he sold you his piece. So it's very difficult to sell video art. And I know that some friends in Italy and in Belgium are trying to have a pay-per-view for photographs and videos. Have you heard of any thing like that? And what do you think about this? Myself, I doubt a lot. I'm not sure that this will work, but at the same time, things have been working which I didn't expect to work. So why not?
Gabriel, probably you are speaking also about the visual container in Italy, that they have a new platform of monetization video art and rent video art. Probably you're speaking something like this also. Well, no, like well, it's the same. No, I was thinking about this. If we have to monetize the video art, we have to rent, we have to, what is the thing that the collectors buy when they buy video art? I think that the only thing that they buy when they buy video art is a contract. It's a paper that they say that this is mine, because the videos more or less are online. The people can copy, can make, you can see in all the museums, you can see in different galleries, but the collectors want to have something that they say that it is only for me, or only for the 6 person that they have in the world. Andrés?
Perdón, Mario. Si pudieras hablar en español sería mejor, porque si no, Gabriel no te va a poder escuchar porque está escuchando el canal en inglés y necesita que salgas por el canal en español para él poder recibir la traducción.
Vale, perdonar.
No, todo bien.
Justo que es de Madrid.
Bueno, nada, simplemente eso, hablando un poco del tema de que los contratos hoy en día...
I wanted to say that the contracts nowadays, when you buy video art, you just buy a contract, that's it. The rest, in general, video can be seen in museums, it can be seen, you can download it many times. What I was thinking is that there are many famous artists who have none of their art on the internet, but for example, Benny Hill has 80% of his work is on his website, all of his videos. You can easily download them. I don't know whether he has sold all of these videos that he has uploaded, so he's just putting his ideas as an artist. And maybe from that, we can think of what you're showing and why some artists have everything online, and whether if you have it online, you cannot sell it or you cannot rent it. Gabriela? I think it's a bit strange. It is clear that collectors just buy paper, and the fetishism of saying this is mine when you buy video. Those are the rules of the market. I think with regards to what Gabriel is saying, that it should work in a different way, that it's not the same, that it's not the galleries that actually put the video on. We could think of other strategies. For me, the strategies cannot be introduced. The strategies of the gallerists with the collectors that want to have their own thing is one strategy, but we could also have a price for whatever is on the net, on the media. And in Argentina, we are struggling. We have a price list, and we want to say that for every intervention online of the artists, whether it's a piece, a talk, a video, you must pay 5,000 pesos, which is nothing. But during the pandemic, we said, okay, so we're not exploited. So I think in the case of monetization of the online content, it should be a separate circuit to galleries. galleries in one system. I don't think you could do the same. I have problems. I am on both sides of the counter in a way with the issue of keeping, not showing, not opening Vimeos and YouTube. I have a problem with that. I have problems. I think whatever artists can do whatever they want, but I prefer artists who have everything open to share, whether they sell or they don't. I think to work in video and to think about the non-reproducibility of the video pieces. I do video. Once I had an argument with a young artist many years ago. And I was saying that my videos were an edition of 5, for example, but in reality, that was a lie. And there's maybe 2,000 copies of my video. And he called me a liar or a con artist. And I said, I do a work that is reproduced. If a friend asks me for a copy of my video, they have it, and they have it. And my video in the festival, sometimes they give it back and sometimes they don't. So I'm not going to fight against that. But in the same sentence, I could say that I could sell it to somebody who wants to have one of those 5 videos, because that will have a certificate. But for me, it is a bit like a joke. It is a bit like an agreement, an informal agreement about something that doesn't really work that way. The video can be reproduced. Everybody can have my video. To have the paper or not is just to have something in the art system. This I wanted to say so that I could finally say that we could have platforms. I think in Canada, they worked with this idea to acquire videos, to put them online, to pay videos, to have these, to be on platforms of these art centers. So I think that could work, but not, that doesn't compete with the other type of sale. If you sell a video at 5,000, maybe you can sell it at 500 or 1,000. It's a different type of circulation. It is something more according to what video is and what reproducibility is and what internet is. Here, Andres sent me the thing that I put in Chrome, a video, a plugin for Vimeo. And all of the videos I see, I can download it. Unless they have passwords or anything. He gave it to me, this plugin. So I can see whatever I want. That is illegal, but I can do it. I can download anything I like, even if it's closed. And I think that is fantastic. You are a delinquent. I have some friends, some colleagues from Fortaleza, Alessandra Veras, who says that the first time I went, they said, Silvina, we are in favor of piracy, because back then, when internet was not so strong, we had the box and everything. Don't be a pirate, etc., etc. But the people who do those business are the most pirate. I think there is a problem which has to do with, on the one hand, what we were talking about before, the deficit of public policy. This not only has to do with the amount of subsidies that you give out, with the money that is distributed, but it's also to do with rules and regulations due to monopolic relationships that obligate you to consume and to pay. And on the other hand, art doesn't really go into those places. I think art should be different. And when something is free, I don't know if I'm too hippie-ish, but I do have this idea of the art should be free, but that doesn't mean that There should be other ways for this to be funded from a different place.
¿Sabes una cosa? O sea, yo...
One thing.
Kini, ¿quién es? Kini. Soy yo. Espera, que me abro la cámara.
Eso.
This is me, Kini. Let me turn on my camera.
Hola.
Yo no sé, aquí hay muchas
I don't know.
cosas que perfilar.
There are many things to think about here. One is the world of art, what art says, and how art is understood.
Vivimos
Let's see.
una situación
We are going through a situation relatively easy for what the Second World War was when you compare it. So
tendríamos que estar por encima del bien y del mal.
We should be above good and evil. Yes. Don't break my balls. This is what's here. What do? I analyze reality, I reinterpret it, I cover it, and that's it. No, I don't expect retribution, which I would love to have, nor anything in exchange. So it is the way that art is positioned in the world, where everybody should say, this is it. What's your name? My name is Kini.
Artista y colaborador de proyector.
He is an artist and a collaborator. Kini here is Quiniela, which is like it is like a lottery. It is the national lottery. Sometimes you get the good things and sometimes you get the bad. That's true. I don't know. I think what we should look for is a general response from the art world to this world situation, the situation that we're going through. We're talking about micro worlds, macro worlds. Let us not be naive. We are a small arrowhead that then becomes much bigger. Museums, institutions. So I don't know. We should all feel art. We should all be aware of the situation and express it. I'm not an expert in many things. Okay. I'm going to go back to some of the points we were discussing before with regards to the decentralization of cities. I think we've realized that the city doesn't exist and people want to go to the country. We want to construct different places to work. These social projects in nature and different things that are happening around the world. And I believe those communities where you showed video, sound, your body, any kind of discipline with the people who inhabited that place, with the community work and the social work, the political work, I believe that is coming back and that it will come back. And I think we should, as Laura was saying, about the double speed, the screen, we cannot avoid it. It is there. And the idea of working more and more in the public, to work in intervention so people don't have to touch each other, don't have to go into the museum or the gallery, but we can project outside the gallery, the museum, so that it can be a project that is more to do with intervention. If they don't allow us to touch each other, what we can do to avoid it, or maybe art has to force us to hug each other. Because if we don't hug, we can't hear the piece of work, for example. And not be so afraid of everything. In certain way, if we are fearful, they'll get anything they want from us. And we should recover the social space and the need for contact. And with the Zoom, we can see our faces, but we have not been able to hug for months, not even with our parents. That is the situation that we will live in a dangerous way. We are in a dangerous time in some way. We are all facing the same danger, focused from different ways. And that's where we should surf. I am very happy to live in a dangerous time that I had not seen since the 90s when I used to go out into the night. And this is, we need to look for a way to be able to do projects, to get ideas, to try to get like-minded people together and to surf the wave. This is a moment which is fucked up. Death is always fucked up. But I think it is a time where artists should give their opinion. That's what they are artists for, to contrast for all of these things. And that is the case. These are difficult times. We must endure. We must endure the knocks and to think that we will come out of this one in a better way than we went in. Mario, with regards to what you were saying about projecting on the streets, I was remembering that in the museum where we are preparing this exhibition in Zaragoza, Ethiopia, they have on the outside a LED screen, an LED screen, and you can show the exhibition that is going inside on the outside. You can project and you can agree with the artist and you can project everything outside at night so that people can see it. So it is like the museum is turned inside out. Yes, in Prado, you can also do that for participation and interaction with the public in the streets. I collaborated with a festival in Holland with a foundation which works with electronic arts and video. And we did a festival in 2011, which was just street interventions. There was nothing inside. It was just museums, windows, without going anywhere. You could see everything. It's a small city of 50,000 inhabitants. And it was just video, image and movement. Maybe we should now go back to that. If not, we are locked into our small screens, individual screens. And is it too late for Gabriela and Andres with regards to how your festival has changed? I saw you had a performance on the first day, which was very important, which was designed for the new media. and we had multiple performers with different proposals for sound, video, interacting in layers as if it was a concert, but in Zoom. I thought that was very smart, and I wanted to know whether you had continued with that, and how did you do with the live part of the festival these days? Mario, when I was saying that, what Mario said at the beginning of this talk was that when faced with the uncertainty of what was going to happen for his festival, he decided that the physical and the spatial was fundamental and that he had to use it. And when Mario finished that idea, which I felt was great, I said quickly, actually, the decision that the BIM made this year that we took with Gabriela to change everything, having into a perspective what could happen, we made this decision with Gabriela in April, when we felt in April, because you were saying, let us hurry, because this will finish soon. Yes, that was a variable that we felt that we could go through this very quickly. With Gabriela, when we began with this, we had the idea that this would be a project within the BIM. We historically have a format that is not like the projector festival, but we do put a lot of emphasis on the physical. We have an important installation, and generally we have activities that are live. The Modern Art Museum gives us the chance to program performances, expanded film, live video, etc. So we always have that. So when we present the BIM, we always have like 3 axes. On the one hand, the most conventional for the film festival and video, which are projections, which are carried out every day. Then different exhibitions, a central one, which we had at the beginning in a space that we love, which is the Untref Itinerante, which is a place in the old immigrant hotel of people who came from Europe and used to be quarantined there. It was an obligation for hygiene purposes. That is the space where we do the main exhibition, and then we have peripheral exhibitions. And then we have all of these special activities, which also include all performances. So in that sense, we see the offer, which is similar. And this year, with Gabriela, we decided not to do that. It would have been impossible to do that. There was a point at which we decided it would not be possible, but we said, we're not going to translate that in a literal way to a virtual space. We will not set video programs with a link to watch the videos as reproduction lists. That was an alternative. And then to have big virtual halls, like in a Second Life or like a video game, where you could go through virtual exhibition halls and see the work. We felt that was horrible. So what we did is we said, if this is going to be online, if the support is going to be the internet, it should have elements
de las
of what is
posibilidades
interactive, the possibilities for navigation that have to do with the web as a support. That's why we don't have program. And when you go into this, there is a linearity. It is an experience that forces a didactic process to begin to understand what it is that I am watching. And in that sense,
parece lo opuesto porque todo es digital.
it seems the opposite, but it isn't, because we value
la situación de encuentro, ¿no?
the situation of the
Sur
real encounter. We live in the south of South. We are at the asshole of the world for us, and the situation for encounter for us to meet people at the BIM is fundamental. It is the time where we welcome colleagues, professionals, friends, future friends, and the BIM, the experience of the BIM, goes over the catalog. It is more than the content. It is marked by spontaneity, by the coffee that you are able to go and look at, the beer you may go and drink with friends, of projections, in the encounters that you may have with unknown people or groups of people when you actually get a discussion on a round table, the spontaneity that can happen when we are mounting an exhibition. That is the BIM. For us, that is the BIM. With this BIM, we tried to reproduce that in this format, within the possibilities that this gives us. And when I speak about this, I mean these faces that are here, which have an affectionate weave. In some way, we found a reconnection in an emotional way. We cannot get together physically. We cannot feel the skin of the other person, the possibility. We cannot look into each other's eyes, and that's why the project is called that. We're missing that. That void is there. But I think we try to reconsider this media. This happens to me personally. I didn't used to consider this a variable. And now this gives me a lot of possibilities, the chance to meet people online. I'm missing the other things, I miss it, and it is necessary, but this becomes much more human than I had managed to imagine. To close with that idea. Gabriela, you wanted to say something. I just wanted to add, I really miss being in person. I love sharing spaces, inside or out. I love to see people going through this. I love going for a beer afterward. But there is something that allowed us to gaze into each other's eyes, first with Andres, who is, I think we did the project that Andres and I needed. The Bienal is something that happens because we want it to exist. So it is something that we didn't think about it, but when we started to imagine this gazing into each other's eyes, we actually needed this. We needed to be able to communicate with a lot of artists and to imagine things. When I called Silvina and I invited her and she called somebody else and we began to speak to a lot of people, that sometimes when we do the exhibition, first we talk to the artists and then we delegate. and there is a production team that works with us. But here it was a sustained dialogue, in depth, through WhatsApp. Okay, so we discussed everything. And this type of curatorship is very deep. It is in depth. This curatorship was not just of the space, but it was a curatorship where each work was analyzed and reanalyzed. So it was something, it's also work that stems from sadness. In April, we were sad, and we must come to terms with that. We were sad because of death. We could see what was happening around the world. We were in fear. We could not see our families. We could not go out in the street. And in a more selfish way, without seeing the horizon, what we do may never ever be seen again. Now we are adapting, but at the beginning, we just didn't know what would happen. We were melancholic, we were sad, we had a desire, and that can be seen. And I think today, retrospectively, because April to me is like 200 years ago now, it was a place to actually meet, to see what we could do together. We were laughing with the text because we didn't want things to sound too romantic. Andres was sending me these phrases and we were trying to find out what to use. So we're not that interested in projecting on the screen. What we're interested in is to weave, to get together, to connect people. One thing, sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to finish the question that Mario had asked, because there is another activity that is beginning, and this other activity that will begin in a minute has to do with something else that Mario had asked. Cristina, one of the people in our team, and Ariel, who is also in our team, especially Ariel, is undertaking a program called In the Search of a Collective Image, which are encounters for collective creation, which will begin now at 7 p.m. in Buenos Aires. And you can go and see it. They are themed encounters to build as a team together. And we were doing different encounters throughout the whole beam, without names, without authorship, with a main objective of sharing images with an orientation to create collectively. So we also had those instances of working together, which you saw in the inauguration, and in a way, as a way to try and rehearse an encounter, a proximity. Sorry that I interrupted you. Okay, I am very serious now. I was so inspired when I was speaking. I am an emotional girl. This is the last few days. What Andres was saying about the collective image continues tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll get the Metro Portual tomorrow. We also did the performance on the first day with the idea of to open archives. But just to close, I want to say that all of this energy about looking into each other's eyes, when we got to the time of special activities, the only thing we wanted was to chat or to do these activities, to exchange things. We did not think that we would all watch a video together. We felt that the project was so horizontal that the idea to focus on something, I always say, what is the highlight? And there is no highlight because everything is pretty similar. They are small windows, the videos appear and disappear, but not by importance or by reputation. So we did these videos with some films that had been produced in labs, but we did not really share them. And that is it. In 5 months, we are almost, we felt it would be more formal, but it ended up being less formal. And we made this space our own. The idea of going out into the streets to project, I love this idea, and I was thinking that I would love to do this project, more general projects, not just to invest some money, but to think. And they could be doing this. They could be doing festivals or things. They could do it in a corner, in a street corner, but sorry, there was a comment. I don't know whether you read it.
Chat, o si Lili lo querés decir. Porque
A
estaba
ver, no,
dedicado sobre todo a
no me fijé en el chat.
Ah, bueno, por eso lo digo porque
Gabriel estaba agradeciendo.
Gabriel was thanking everybody for being invited. He felt it was a privilege to be here. He really felt what Andres was describing. And he comments from Silvina with regards to Nicolás, to what he said about Ferro White and the importance of rescuing the fossils. Okay, I'm going to read it. It says, Nicolás, what you have done with what's there, a fantastic project that has been done, a model of museum which self-builds itself, where art is expressed in the relationship past, present, and future, and through the actions of the interdisciplinary shared with the community and the space. Thank you for making visible the periphery and your enthusiasm and your lucidity. With projects such as yours, there is a chance that the fossils that we will become will deserve more respect.
No, gracias Lili por lo que decís de una manera
Lili, for
con
what
muchas
you
más
say.
certezas de las que yo tengo respecto de lo que
With so
hacemos por
much
acá.
certainty, so much more
Bastante
certainty
menos,
than I have.
Más peleado que pulido, digamos, ¿no?
It is something that I
bueno,
struggle
gracias.
with. Thank you.
Bien.
Okay, my friends, we are past the time. The new activity will begin now, which is the one to do, it is the imagined family towards a collective image. This is the time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for sharing this time. Thank you, Silvina. Thank you, Laura, Mario, Gabriel, Nico. Thank you for sharing this time with us. We hope that soon we will all be together physically, remembering this as what we had to do once upon a time. Thank you for the Untref team who are doing the streaming and the technical part. Thank you to the interpreter. And as always, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the beam is made by a couple of teachers and many students from the Untref University. So we want to thank all of those students of the project. Thank you once again. It was great to spend this time together. Thank you. I want to say that on Saturday we will have a toast at 8 p.m. Argentine time. So we'll see you if you want with some goblet of some drink. We can toast on the Zoom. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Disculpen, voy a hacer una pregunta.
Okay, one question. If, oh, hello everybody, my name is Ariel. If you're invited to remain to participate in the next activity, thank you. Whoever wants to stay can stay for this creative collection.